Welcome back to NBA Today and back to a developing story. Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier are among 34 people charged in connections with illegal sports gambling, authorities announced Thursday. Rozier is accused of using insider NBA information in illegal sports gambling, and Billups is charged in a separate indictment alleging a wide-ranging scheme to rig underground poker games tied to the mafia. Now joining NBA Today, ABC News Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky. Aaron, thank you so much for staying with us here on NBA Today. What more can you tell us about what Chauncey Billups is being accused of?
Yeah, Sinead, Chauncey Billups, according to federal prosecutors, was the lure, the mafia allegedly paying him for his celebrity to attract high rollers to poker tables in the Hamptons, in Las Vegas, in Miami, and right here in Manhattan, so they would gamble, so they would play poker. What those people didn't know was that everyone else at the table was in on the scam because the games were rigged. Chauncey Billups was known as a face card because the mafia allegedly used his face to lure in these unsuspecting victims. The victims themselves were called fish, as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York explained in Brooklyn a short while ago.
The scheme targeted victims known as, quote, fish, who were often lured to participate in these rigged games by the chance to play alongside former professional athletes who were known as, quote, face cards. The so-called face cards included the defendant Chauncey Billups, who at the time of the scheme was a former NBA player and is currently the head coach of the Portland Trailblazers, and also Damon Jones, a former NBA player and coach. What the victims, the fish, didn't know is that everybody else at the poker game, from the dealer to the players, including the face cards, were in on the scam. For example, they used off-the-shelf shuffling machines that had been secretly altered in order to read the cards in the deck, predict which player at the table had the best poker hand, and relay that information to an off-site operator.
These rigged poker games have been going on, prosecutors say, since at least 2019, and it involved these altered shuffling decks, X-ray poker tables that could read cards that were face down. There were special glasses and contact lenses that enabled players in on the scam to know what the victims' cards were, and other technology brought to bear. The victim, Shanae, had no chance at winning these games. They lost millions of dollars. And since the mob was involved, prosecutors say if the victims couldn't or wouldn't pay, that's when violence was used to make sure they did.
Thank you, Aaron, for providing this profound information and stopping by NBA Today as well. Let's welcome in ESPN sports betting reporter David Purdom and senior NBA writer Tim Bontemps. And David, I want to start with you here. How exactly were games allegedly being manipulated to give bettors an edge?
Yeah, so there were basically two allegations about the games and how they were being compromised. The first one, when you think back at Chauncey Porter. Before Chauncey Porter was a Toronto Raptor player, 2 games in 23-24 season, he took himself out before, maybe played a few minutes. Before those games, there had been all these bets on the under on his assists, under on his points, under on rebounds. And so when he took himself out, those made sure that his associates that were betting on those games won those wagers. The second type of manipulation is not so much of a manipulation, it's more of inside information sharing. And that's where a lot of this was kind of a pay for information scam, where people that had inside information about who was going to play that game. Were guys going to sit out? Were they not? These were relayed to gamblers who actually paid the people who are distributing the money, paid them money for the information, and then the gamblers used that to place their bets. A lot of those bets were successful.
David, how much money are we talking about here?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, for sure.
Okay, hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's also a layer of insider information with Damon Jones. Where does that come into play?
Yeah, when Jones was a kind of an unofficial assistant coach with the Lakers, this goes back to 2022-2023 season, there was a game between the Lakers and Milwaukee Bucks on February 9th. He relayed to one of the bettors that was named in the indictment today to get a big bet on Milwaukee tonight because a prominent player was going to sit out. Now, the indictment does not name the player, but the details of that were included do match Lakers' LeBron James, who did not play in that game. Now, James has not been accused of any wrongdoing, and according to sources told they're close to him, James was unaware of any kind of activity involving gambling that Jones was taking part of.
And I want to switch over to Tim Bontemps right now because, Tim, you were in New York this morning for the FBI press conference. While the legal process sorts itself out, what is going to be the biggest impact on the NBA landscape right now?
Well, yeah, Sinead, this is obviously a gigantic story, and David just expertly laid out all of the intricacies of it from the gambling side. He's done an incredible job covering this story for years now. But from a basketball standpoint, the huge part of this story is that Chauncey Billups will no longer be coaching the Portland Trailblazers, at least for some period of time. He's on an indefinite leave, as is Terry Rozier from the Miami Heat. Terry Rozier, however, is a guy who's on the end of the bench at this point for the Heat. He's not really a factor for them on a day-to-day basis. Chauncey Billups, though, is the coach of an up-and-coming young team. Last night, I was on my way home from MSG watching their game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, where the Blazers were going right down to the buzzer, needed Anthony Edwards to hit a couple crazy shots at the end of that game for a team that made the Western Conference Finals the last 2 years to come out with a win. And Portland, having traded for Drew Holiday this summer, having Shaedon Sharpe and Toumani Camara just getting extended last week, this is a team that comes into this season hopeful that they can be a playoff team in the Western Conference. And certainly after a good opening night, a good showing against an elite competitor in the Minnesota Timberwolves, to have this come out the next morning really just throws the entire franchise's upcoming and immediate future into the air. And Thiago Splitter will be taking over, obviously, as the interim head coach, but it's certainly going to be interesting to see how Portland handles it.
Now, the Portland Trailblazers, they released a statement today saying, quote, "We are aware of the allegations involving head coach Chauncey Billups, and the Trailblazers are fully cooperating with the investigation. Billups has been placed on immediate leave, and Thiago Splitter will assume head coaching duties in the interim. Any further questions should be directed to the NBA." So we've heard from insiders, we've heard from reporters. I want to talk to a player. Perk, your reaction?
So 3 things, right? Number 1, innocent to proven guilty, right? To, this is all till the dust settle. Number 2, the league does have a problem, right? And we got to make sure that as a league, we continue to protect the integrity of the game, right? Sports betting is everywhere. It's everywhere. You can't run from it. You can't hide it. Hell, my phone blows up every single day. Go ahead.
Even on our own network.
It's
here
on
at ESPN.
Yeah, but my phone blows up every day. Hey, Perk, from cousins to friends, and and obviously I could speak on it because I talk it. I speak for it on a living. I make appearances on ESPN Bet. But what I'm saying is, Sinead, just think about certain things that are being leaked out. How can you stop information from being leaked out? Wendy talked about, the reports of injuries, right? Think about it. We still don't know who leaked out the Jordan Poole and Draymond Green fight. Now, I know this has nothing to do with it, but you talk about keeping things sacred and protecting the integrity of the league. So we got to find a way to do that. But on the flip side of things, you look at situations like this, and it's unfortunate. And I bring up a personal experience of what I teach to my kids because, as we can see, it's a ripple effect, right? And I'm teaching my kids to be leaders and not followers, right? Don't go with the group always, because what end up happening is if somebody in the group goes down, guess what? Y'all all going down. And that's what we're seeing right now. But again, I don't want to dive too deep into everything that's going on because I'm innocent. I want the innocent to proven guilty is what I stand on.
And I do think a lot of people probably wonder, how do they know not to do these things? Just as much as we are taught, areas of emphasis every year when the referees have videos, they teach us about the impact of sports betting. They say you can't talk to your family members. You can't tell anyone anything, even though they might be in your inner circle. I just want people to understand that the NBA has an educational program each year that you have to sit through as a player and also coach to understand these circumstances.
And one more small detail, I know Wendy brought it up, you know, when Wendy and Sean's brought it up earlier about, you know, the league had a released Terry Rozier, right? Mm-hmm. And he was still being investigated, right? How did he get released? That's because the FBI is not going to tell you every single thing. Even the NBA, right? They're not going to let you in on all the information. So again, this is why we got to find ways to protect.
And I would assume, you know, resources matter too in these types of conversations.
NBA